Mikel Arteta targets unpredictability as Arsenal's tactics enter chameleon phase. Arsenal used the same formation in every Premier League game last season and made, by a margin of 16, the fewest changes to the starting 11 of any team, averaging just one a game. Teams knew what they were going to do even if, most of the time, they just couldn't stop it. Yet Mikel Arteta foresees that irresistibility only lasting so long. Teams adapt. They hone in on the most common patterns and eventually counter them. He has spent this summer planning how to avoid staleness creeping in as he seeks to build on a formula that worked so well for the majority of last season. So what is next? Arteta's answer is to transform Arsenal into a footballing chameleon. You can't defend what you don't understand, and 8 days into the club's USA tour, it has become clear that Arteta is determined to create a playbook of such varied systems that it flummoxes their opponents. The idea is to be more unpredictable every year, to become more difficult for the opponents to stop and nullify what we want to do, he said. That's what we have now, especially at the back and in the midfield. The options we have, to open up the spaces. We have many more options than we had last year. With teams trying to press Arsenal and prevent them from getting their passing patterns going, being able to counteract an opponent to ensure they cannot clog up your usual rotations is so important. This week, The Athletic asked Arteta whether this meant people should expect to see Arsenal switching to different plans more often. It's not A, B or C. It's A1, A2, A3, depending on how you want to look at it, he said. We are looking at options. We are training different options, but also, sometimes, you have to leave players on the training ground to see, because sometimes when they train with each other they give you a lot of information. It doesn't always have to be you provoking information. They give you information as well and you have to be ready to take that. So how is the approach likely to differ from last season? The style of Arsenal's attack with 5, defend with 5 balance will remain, but Arsenal's build-up will shapeshift far more than it did last season. Alexander Zinchenko's arrival from Manchester City took their possession game to new heights as his inverted role from left-back helped them become far more press-resistant. Ben White played a specific role on the opposite flank to provide balance behind the ball. But, in the team's preseason games so far, the sheer number of options available to Arteta, and the number he is willing to utilize, has become obvious. White, Takahiro Tomiyasu, Jurrien Timber, William Saliba, Rob Holding, Gabriel, Jakub Kiwior, Kieran Tierney and Zinchenko are the starting options Arteta has to form his back four. Timber's cameo against MLS All-Stars was superb and he showcased his ability to receive on the half-turn after moving inside. When Martin Odegaard pulls out into the right-back position, Timber vacates. It means Arsenal's most creative passer is looking into the game. That is a positive as it gives him great angles to observe on his left foot if the rotations and forward runs of Bukayo Saka and Kai Havertz can drag the opposition over to one side. I think you've seen tonight that Timber, a really versatile player, said Arteta after the 5-0 win over MLS All-Stars. We can use him in different positions within those positions. He gives you the capacity to invert and occupy different spaces. He's so comfortable on the ball in that phase. As well, he's got that aggression in the duels and that dynamism which I really like. Against Manchester United, we saw the possibilities that full-backs inverting on both sides can create. In the 13th minute, they worked a great rotation on the left which opened up the pass for Gabriel to find Tomiyasu behind the United midfield, but Eddie Nketiah crowded the space by dropping and they had to circulate the ball to the other side. But they successfully created the overload once again when Aaron Ramsdale's ball out wide to Gabriel Martinelli saw Tomiyasu use Havertz's overlap to burst forward and switch the ball wide to Saka. It was a pass that only a right-footed player operating on the left would have been able to execute, once again showing the variety. The concept of a best 11 feet is a redundant term if you want to win at the elite level. The physical and mental demands of a 60-game season, incorporating a Champions League campaign, means it is now about a core group of 14 or 15 players who can start without there being a sense of vulnerability. Last season, Arsenal's fluidity was affected too much when Saliba suffered his back injury, so having fallback options depending on availability is key. Outside the 5 academy graduates in the first team, only Holding, Tierney, Mohamed Elneny, Nicolas Pepe and Martinelli predate Mikel Arteta's arrival at Arsenal in December 2019. This is very much Arteta's squad now, but learning the game model can be demanding with it requiring in-game intelligence to problem solve and know when to invert or not. Odegaard says he often helps new players get to grips with the instructions when it comes to understanding their position by talking them through which spaces they should be occupying in training. Having witnessed the evolution of the team, while having to try to reinvent himself from the traditional powerful running left back he was at Celtic, Tierney knows it can take time to adapt. We're working on it now a lot to allow them to get used to it, but they're picking it up so quickly. They're very intelligent players and you've seen how well they've done already, he told after the defeat to Manchester United. Last season, if I was playing, it was more inverted on the left, but this year we can mix it up and do different things. Zinchenko is the prime example of how to do it, so, if you're going to learn off anyone, it would be him. I've been learning off him and asking him questions, but there are so many different ways of playing. The last few games, I haven't been doing that. Different people work in different ways. I prefer to do it on the pitch. Video helps for sure, and even when you're on the bench you watch when he goes inside, when he comes out. It's all learning, as it was genuinely all new to me. I had never played in the center of the park before. It wasn't somewhere I ventured very often, so it makes you a better player learning. The last 2 games I've played within the back 3, as I do for Scotland and as I did for Arsenal when I first came in and we won the FA Cup. In both friendlies, Tierney was seen making long off-the-ball bursts down the line when the ball was switched from the right. If Timber inverts from the right side, it could free Tierney up to play his more natural game, providing width and driving with the ball. But there are so many other options, too. Kiwior has played inverted from the left, which saw Gabriel drift out to become the left centre-back in the 3. The Polish defender could also make it a Manchester City-style defence by playing 4 centre-backs if White plays on the other side. Then there is the potential to switch up the midfield dynamic with Declan Rice, Jorginho and Thomas Partey. Arsenal always play with a lone number 6, but they can change the characteristics of what type of number 6 they play with. In big games, Rice could jump up 1 to play as a number 8 to add more athleticism alongside Partey, whose ball-playing ability has been so important to the team's improvement in possession. Similarly, up front, Arteta spoke this week about the ability to use Havertz as a target man through the middle as opposed to a number 8 on the left of midfield. Arsenal will likely stumble upon something resembling a nominal, settled 11, as chopping and changing every game can end up a hindrance. With this many options, though, it will take an injury crisis of epic proportions to leave them as exposed as they were towards the end of last season. Declan Rice wants Arsenal to go one better than their runner-up Premier League finish last term and land the title in his first full season at the club. The Gunners were so close to registering their first top-flight trophy since 2004 last season and were top of the table for a whopping 248 days. But a late capitulation saw them miss out to Manchester City, who went on to land a famous treble with further triumphs in the FA Cup and Champions League. Arsenal have strengthened their squad this summer as Mikel Arteta's team look to close the gap to Pep Guardiola's champions, signing Rice in a mega £105 million deal. England international midfielder Rice, quizzed about his upcoming debut at the Emirates, told Arsenal's YouTube channel, "I can't wait. When I signed I was speaking to the manager, and when we were stood there looking out from the box, it was so surreal. What a stadium, and we're very lucky to play our home football there. Last year, the place was crazy with the atmosphere and the fans. Some of the games, hopefully this year we can go one better and excite the fans even more." Rice also hailed his new club teammate Bukayo Saka, who was sat next to him in the interview. "You wouldn't have known this, but I watched you play for England's under-17s at St George's or under-18s, Rice told Saka when quizzed about how the pair met. "He played left wing back. That's when I first saw Saka. The growth since then has just been crazy. Straight away everyone just loved him just because of just how he is. He's happy, and on the training pitch he works so hard. I think he had the respect of everyone straight away." Ex-Manchester City and Chelsea winger Sean Wright-Phillips, not worried about Arsenal in title race next season. Premier League title race. Arsenal came close to winning their first league title since 2004 last season, finishing 5 points behind champions Man City. The Gunners will look to go one better next term and have bolstered Mikel Arteta's squad this summer with the signings of Declan Rice, Kai Havertz and Jurrien Timber. But Wright-Phillips is not worried about Arsenal and says, "So many Other teams have strengthened since Manchester City secured their third successive title last season. We're not worried about Arsenal next season, the Man City ambassador and former England star said. There are so many other teams who have got stronger since last season. I think there will be more opportunities for other teams to try to claw back at Man City and Arsenal. City have dominated the Premier League for more than 10 years, and the challenge is to keep on doing it because other teams have got stronger. You never know with Pep Guardiola. After playing with 4 centre-backs last season, he's probably now got something else up his sleeve. Wright Phillips' dad Ian Wright was desperate to see his beloved Arsenal beat Manchester City to a long-awaited league title. The Gunners' legend was goaded by his son with the Premier League trophy after Arsenal suffered an end-of-season wobble to finish second. He got a bit carried away earlier in the season, so I gave him a little bit back when City came good, like I said they would, Wright Phillips added. To be fair, my dad took it very gracefully. He admitted Man City deserved it, especially after the games with Arsenal at the Emirates and the Etihad. He thought City were fantastic during the run-in and deserved to be champions. I don't gloat. That's what he does.